Starting your own business without quitting like a fool begins with understanding this. Your job is not your prison until it becomes your only source of leverage. Most men quit too early because they want the feeling of freedom before they have built the structure to survive it. They mistake pressure for proof. They mistake disgust for strategy. They want to shock their family, silence their doubters, and finally feel like they chose themselves. But Machiavelli would call that emotional exposure. The unsupported man cannot copy the reckless courage of men with savings, connections, or someone waiting to rescue them. He must build in enemy territory while still collecting resources from it. Survival number, business cost, real buyers, manual sales, proof, runway, consistent demand. The counter-trap is staying forever because security became addiction. You do not quit when you are angry. You quit when your evidence makes staying irrational. Phil Knight did not begin Nike by declaring himself free. He sold shoes from the trunk of his car while he was still building proof. Pierre Omidyar did not leave because eBay sounded inspiring. He moved when the market had already started proving the machine worked. That is the pattern most impatient men refuse to study. First proof, then transition, first demand, then freedom. So the real question is not whether you hate your job. The real question is whether you are building a business or only trying to escape humiliation. Because those are not the same thing. One creates freedom. The other creates panic with a logo. There is a type of man who says he wants independence, but what he really wants is a dramatic exit. He wants the scene. He wants to walk away. He wants the people who doubted him to watch him choose himself. He wants his family to regret laughing. He wants his friends to feel small. He wants his boss to realize too late that he was never ordinary. But the market does not care about your emotional climax. The market does not reward the moment you leave. The market rewards the structure you built before you left. This is the hidden mechanism. A job can be a cage, but it can also be a supply line. It can fund your escape. It can buy your tools. It can pay your rent while the market is still deciding whether your offer deserves attention. It can keep panic away long enough for you to think clearly, test honestly, and sell without desperation leaking from your voice. Most men are too emotional to use the enemy. They want to flee the place that pays them before they have extracted the resources required to defeat their dependence on it. That is not power. That is exposure. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to follow the real truth of the matter than the imagination of it. That line was written for rulers, but it belongs to every man who wants to start his own business without becoming a warning story. The imagination says, quit, prove them wrong, become free, show them who you are. The real truth says, calculate, test, sell, preserve cash, collect proof, then move. This is where most men expose themselves. They quit because they feel trapped. But they have no buyers, no offer, no savings, no distribution, no repeatable sales system, no understanding of tax, cost, demand, or runway. They call it courage. The market calls it weakness. And the market is colder than your boss. Your boss may underestimate you. Your family may doubt you. Your friends may laugh at the business you are trying to build. But the market does not even owe you an opinion. It does not care that you are ambitious. It does not care that you are tired. It does not care that nobody supported you. It does not care that you have been carrying pressure in silence for years. The market asks one question: can you create value that someone will pay for repeatedly? Until the answer is yes, your identity means nothing. That is the part most men cannot accept. They believe their private ambition should count as evidence. They believe the strength they feel inside should be visible to the world. They believe the pain they endured should make them exceptional. But pain is not proof. Discipline is not proof until it produces output. Potential is not proof until it becomes evidence. Your dream is not proof until a buyer puts money behind it. This is why quitting too early is dangerous. You do not just lose income, you lose psychological authority over yourself. The first month feels powerful. You tell yourself you are finally free. You wake up without a boss. You feel clean. You feel chosen by your own decision. You tell yourself this is the beginning of your real life. The second month feels different. The money starts moving faster than expected. The idea that felt powerful in your head becomes harder to sell in the real world. The website does not bring buyers. The content does not produce attention. The people who praised your courage do not become customers. The silence becomes louder. The third month becomes pressure. And when pressure becomes financial, it stops being inspiring. It becomes physical. It enters your sleep. It changes your posture. It changes the way you write messages. It changes the way you price your work. It changes how quickly you say yes to people you should reject. Then panic enters the room. And when panic enters, strategy leaves. You start taking bad clients. You lower your prices. You chase every opportunity. You post desperate content. You message people with needy energy. You pretend to be confident while your nervous system is negotiating with rent. You become the exact kind of man the market can smell from a distance. A job may control your time, but desperation controls your frame, and a man who loses his frame loses his negotiating power. This is why the unsupported man must be more strategic than the man with a safety net. He cannot afford symbolic bravery. He cannot afford fantasy entrepreneurship. He cannot afford to make a decision just because his family doubts him, his friends mock him, or his boss treats him like replaceable labor. The man with support can make mistakes and recover quietly. The unsupported man makes the same mistake and loses months, sometimes years. The man with family money can call a failed business a lesson. The unsupported man calls it rent unpaid, debt increased, trust broken, and confidence damaged. This is not unfairness as an excuse. This is reality as intelligence. If you have no one coming to rescue you, then your strategy must be cleaner, your numbers must be clearer, your pride must be quieter, your evidence must come before your announcement. Machiavelli understood foundations. When he studied Cesare Borgia, he wrote that Borgia had laid solid foundations for his future power. That is the phrase you must remember. Solid foundations, not emotions, not announcements, not fantasies. Foundations. Because power built on feeling collapses when feeling changes. Power built on proof survives mood, doubt, disrespect, delay, and silence. Look at Phil Knight. Before Nike became Nike, Knight was not walking around with $1 billion brand. He was not being praised by the world. He was not protected by the status of a famous logo. He was selling imported shoes from the trunk of his car. According to the official publisher page for Shoe Dog, Knight sold shoes from the trunk of his Plymouth Valiant and grossed $8,000 in his first year, 1963. Nike's own profile also notes that before 1968, Knight worked as a certified public accountant and as an assistant professor of business administration at Portland State University. Study that carefully. Pressure. He had an idea, but no empire. Action. He sold directly to runners. First proof. Real shoe sales. Power lesson. He did not wait for the world to respect Nike. He created evidence customer by customer. That is how a business is born. Not with identity, with proof. Most men want the identity first. They want to feel like founders. They want to post like founders. They want to speak like founders. They want the respect of a man who has already built something, while they are still avoiding the humiliation of direct selling. But Knight did not have the luxury of being respected first. He had to sell. And selling is where fantasy goes to be judged. That is why so many men hide from it. They hide behind logos. They hide behind websites. They hide behind color palettes. They hide behind business names. They hide behind planning. They hide behind content calendars. They tell themselves they are building infrastructure, but often they are avoiding contact with the only thing that matters: a buyer. A buyer is colder than a friend. A buyer is more honest than applause. A buyer does not care about your potential. A buyer only cares whether your offer solves a problem clearly enough to deserve money. That is why one real conversation with a buyer can teach you more than weeks of private planning. Now look at Pierre Omidyar, the founder of eBay. He did not begin with a massive corporation. eBay says he spent Labor Day weekend writing code on his personal computer and launched AuctionWeb as a marketplace for buyers and sellers. The first item sold was a broken laser pointer. The Academy of Achievement records Omidyar saying that within 9 months, the revenue was more than he made at his day job, and that was when he dedicated full attention to the company. Again, study the pattern. Pressure. He had a project, not a guarantee. Action. He let the market test the platform. First proof. A broken laser pointer sold for real money. Power lesson. He did not quit because he loved the idea. He quit when the market gave him evidence. That broken laser pointer matters because it represents something most beginners skip. It represents market contact. It represents reality saying something back. It represents the first crack in uncertainty. It was not glamorous. It was not cinematic. It was not a grand launch with perfect branding. It was proof. And proof is more valuable than excitement. That is the cold pattern. First evidence, then expansion, first demand, then transition, first proof, then identity. But most men reverse the order. They want to feel like entrepreneurs before the market has confirmed they solve anything. They want the title before the transaction. They want freedom before discipline. They want respect before results. That is why they suffer. Because the world does not reward private ambition. It rewards visible proof. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few really know what you are." In business, this means the market does not know your potential. It sees your signals, your offer, your testimonials, your consistency, your price, your case studies, your ability to deliver. Hidden value is treated like non-existent value. This is the humiliation of the unsupported man. He may truly be capable. He may truly have discipline. He may truly be carrying more pressure than the people around him understand. But if none of that has become visible proof, the world has no reason to update its judgment. That is not because the world is fair. It is because perception moves through evidence. So stop begging to be understood. Stop explaining your ambition to people who have no incentive to believe it. Stop using resentment as fuel without turning it into structure. Your task is not to convince your family that you are different. Your task is to build so much evidence that their belief becomes irrelevant. If you are the kind of man who is building after work, without support, without applause, and without anyone coming to save you, stop confusing motion with progress. You already know motivation fades. Your real problem is that you need structure, proof, and a system that survives pressure. If you keep consuming harsh truths without turning them into execution, you will become a man with powerful language and weak results. Inside Patreon, you get deeper, unfiltered breakdowns on leverage, discipline, business, power, and self-command, so you can turn isolation into structure and structure into proof. This is not for men who want comfort. It is for men who are done asking permission. The decision is yours. Now we move to the actual exit strategy, not the motivational version, the version for the unsupported man. Step 1. Define your survival number. Before you start your own business, Calculate the cost of staying alive: rent, food, bills, transport, debt, insurance, family obligations, minimum personal expenses, medication if you need it, basic repairs, emergency travel, anything that can become pressure if ignored. Do not guess. A man who does not know his survival number is not taking a risk. He is walking blindfolded into pressure and calling it faith. Your survival number tells you how much pressure you can absorb before your judgment starts breaking. Because once your rent is threatened, you do not make clean decisions. You make survival decisions. There is a difference between a strategic man and a desperate man. The strategic man knows his numbers before life forces him to learn them. The desperate man discovers his numbers when the deadline is already close, when the bank account is already thin, when the client has not paid, when the offer is not converting, and when every decision begins to carry the smell of fear. You cannot build calmly if you do not know your minimum. You cannot negotiate cleanly if one missed payment destroys your frame. You cannot reject bad opportunities if your basic life is always standing at the edge. Your survival number is not just financial information. It is psychological intelligence. It tells you where panic begins. It tells you how long you can think. It tells you how much pressure your ambition can actually carry. Many men hate this step because it destroys fantasy. They would rather say, "I will figure it out." But "I will figure it out" is often the language of a man who has not respected consequences yet. The unsupported man does not get to be vague. Vague men become controlled men. Clear numbers create clear decisions. Step 2. Define your business cost number. The second number is what the business itself costs. Tools, software, inventory, contractors, ads, legal setup, accounting, platform fees, refunds, shipping, taxes. Emergency costs. Most beginners underestimate cost because they only count the visible expenses. They forget the invisible ones: failed ads, slow months, bad customers, refunds, learning curves, delays, mistakes, payment processor holds, broken tools, wrong hires, poor suppliers, time wasted on offers nobody wanted. The market will charge you tuition. The question is whether you planned for it. This number matters because most men do not fail only because their idea is bad. They fail because the pressure around the idea becomes stronger than their ability to keep testing it. They start with excitement. Then, cost begins to reveal itself. The tool is more expensive than expected. The ads do not work on the first attempt. The contractor misses the deadline. The product needs revision. The customer wants a refund. The tax bill arrives. The platform takes a fee. The shipping cost changes. The audience does not respond. Then the man who thought he was building freedom starts feeling trapped by the thing that was supposed to save him. That is when many beginners start improvising from fear. They change the offer too quickly. They change the niche too quickly. They spend money on the wrong solution. They buy courses instead of talking to buyers. They search for certainty in content because reality has become uncomfortable. This is why your business cost number must be written down before pride gets involved. You are not trying to make the dream smaller. You are trying to make the battlefield visible. The visible cost is software. The invisible cost is humiliation. The visible cost is inventory. The invisible cost is waiting. The visible cost is ads. The invisible cost is discovering that strangers do not care yet. If you cannot face those costs while you are still employed, you will not magically become stronger when your paycheck disappears. Step 3. Build a 90-day proof sprint. For 90 days, choose one business idea and test it hard. Not forever. 90 days. Daily outreach. Weekly offers. Real conversations. Real objections. Real feedback. No changing the logo every few days. No rebranding because you are uncomfortable selling. No consuming more courses because rejection made you feel exposed. You need contact with reality. The purpose of the sprint is not to become rich. The purpose is to discover whether the market even moves. This is where the fantasy entrepreneur gets exposed. He says he wants freedom, but he refuses the discipline of one focused test. He says he wants business, but he keeps switching ideas whenever the first one threatens his ego. He says he wants money, but he avoids the conversations where money is actually requested. A proof sprint does not care how inspired you feel. It asks what you did today. How many people did you contact? How many offers did you make? How many objections did you record? How many patterns did you notice? How many times did the market tell you no? And what did that no teach you? The sprint works because it compresses truth. Instead of spending a year fantasizing, you spend 90 days gathering evidence. Not opinions from friends, not encouragement from people who will never buy, not likes from strangers who enjoy the idea but will never take out a card. Evidence. If no one responds, that is evidence. If people respond but do not buy, that is evidence. If people buy once but do not return, that is evidence. If people ask the same question repeatedly, that is evidence. If one segment reacts more strongly than another, that is evidence. The strategic man does not treat rejection as identity damage. He treats it as market intelligence. This is what separates the man building a business from the man trying to escape humiliation. The escape artist needs the market to validate him quickly because his ego is bleeding. The builder studies the market because his goal is not emotional relief. His goal is leverage. Step 4. Sell manually before you automate. Do not hide behind funnels. Do not hide behind websites. Do not hide behind content calendars. Talk to buyers. Send messages. Make offers. Listen to objections. Study language. Notice what people actually care about. Manual selling humiliates the ego because it removes fantasy. You cannot pretend the market loves your offer when real people are ignoring it. You cannot pretend your message is clear when buyers keep asking basic questions. You cannot pretend your price is justified when no one understands the value. You cannot pretend your brand is the problem when the real problem is that you do not know how to create desire, trust, urgency, and proof. But manual selling gives you something automation cannot give you. Direct contact with demand. The weak man wants a system that sells before he has earned the right to understand the customer. The strategic man sells manually until the pattern reveals itself. Then he builds the system. Automation without understanding only spreads confusion faster. A funnel cannot repair a weak offer. A website cannot hide unclear value. A content calendar cannot replace buyer conversations. Ads cannot save a message nobody wants. A logo cannot create trust where there is no proof. This is why selling manually is not beneath you. It is the apprenticeship of power. When you speak to buyers, you learn their exact language. You learn what they fear. You learn what they distrust. You learn what they tried before. You learn which promises sound fake. You learn which results matter. You learn where they hesitate. You learn what makes them move. That information becomes the foundation of everything. Your offer gets sharper. Your content gets more specific. Your proof assets become more relevant. Your pricing becomes more grounded. Your confidence becomes less performative because it is no longer based on imagination. It is based on repeated contact with reality. This is the point where many men must confront the real enemy. The enemy is not the job. The enemy is not the boss. The enemy is not the family that does not understand. The enemy is the part of you that wants freedom without exposure to judgment. Because business will judge you. It will judge your clarity. It will judge your discipline. It will judge your patience. It will judge your usefulness. It will judge whether your ambition has been converted into something another person values enough to pay for. And once you accept that judgment, you stop seeing selling as humiliation. You start seeing it as training. You are not begging. You are testing. You are not chasing approval. You are gathering intelligence. You are not trying to be chosen. You are learning how to create proof that makes choosing you rational. Step 5. Create a proof asset. A proof asset is anything that makes your value visible. A case study, a testimonial, a before and after result, a portfolio, a revenue screenshot, a client story, a product demo, a public breakdown of how you solved a problem. This is where your status changes. Because people do not respect your potential. They respect evidence. Machiavelli said, "Men judge more by the eye than by the hand." In modern terms, people judge what they can see. If your competence is invisible, your value will be underestimated. So stop complaining about being ignored. Make your value harder to ignore. This is one of the coldest lessons in business. You may be skilled, disciplined, serious, and capable, but if the market cannot see proof, it treats your value as a claim. And claims are cheap. Every beginner claims quality. Every beginner claims discipline. Every beginner claims passion. Every beginner claims he is different. Proof separates the man who wants to be believed from the man who has built something undeniable. A proof asset does not need to be perfect. It needs to be real. One satisfied client, one measurable result, one documented process, one transformation you can explain clearly, one product demonstration that shows the thing working, one public breakdown that proves you understand the problem better than the average competitor. Most men want to sell their intention. The market buys evidence. This is why Phil Knight selling shoes from the trunk of his car matters. Every sale was not just money. Every sale was proof that runners would exchange cash for what he offered. Every conversation became intelligence. Every customer became a signal. Every small transaction made the idea less imaginary. This is why Pierre Omidyar's broken laser pointer matters. It sounds small, almost absurd, but it showed that strangers would use the platform to exchange value. That first sale was not the empire. It was the signal that the empire might be possible. You are looking for signals, not applause, not encouragement, not your friends saying, "That sounds cool." Signals. Did someone pay? Did someone return? Did someone refer? Did someone ask for more? Did someone use the result? Did someone show interest without you begging? Did the market move? A proof asset is where private ambition becomes public evidence. It gives you something to show instead of something to explain. And for the unsupported man, this is essential because explanation drains power when you have nothing visible behind it. The man with proof speaks less. The man without proof over-explains. He tries to persuade people emotionally because he has not built enough evidence strategically. He tells his family the vision. He tells his friends the future. He tells himself they will understand once he says it the right way. But most people do not update their judgment because you explain your potential. They update when visible evidence makes their old judgment expensive. That is why proof is not just marketing. Proof is protection. Proof protects you from being dismissed too easily. Proof protects you from desperation. Proof protects your price. Proof protects your confidence. Proof protects your frame when people ask why they should trust you. Without proof, every sales conversation becomes a debate about your credibility. With proof, the conversation changes. You are no longer saying, "Believe me." You are saying, look at what has already happened. And that is a different kind of power. Step 6. Build 3 to 6 months of personal runway. Cash is not just money. Cash is emotional control. Cash is the ability to reject bad clients. Cash is the ability to think slowly when other men are panicking. Cash is the difference between choosing a strategy and begging for survival. The unsupported man needs runway because no one is coming to rescue him. Not his family, not his friends, not his followers. Not the world. Runway is not luxury. Runway is defense. Most men misunderstand savings because they think money is only for spending. That is a poor man's view of money. Strategic money is not only consumption. Strategic money is optionality. It buys time. It buys patience. It buys the right to say no. It buys space between pressure and reaction. And that space is where power lives. A man with no runway is easy to control. A bad client can control him because he needs the invoice. A weak opportunity can control him because he cannot wait. A disrespectful employer can control him because he has no alternative. A slow month can control him because one delay becomes a crisis. This is why the unsupported man must not romanticize risk. Risk without runway is not bold, it is fragile. When you have runway, you can make cleaner decisions. You can turn down work that damages your positioning. You can refuse clients who show disrespect early. You can test offers without immediately begging them to work. You can stay calm long enough to notice patterns. You can build instead of react. But when you have no runway, every decision becomes infected by urgency. You start asking, what will pay fastest? Not what builds leverage, not what compounds, not what creates proof, not what positions me better, just what pays fastest. That is how men become trapped inside the business they thought would free them. They quit the job, but they build another prison. A prison of bad clients, a prison of low prices, a prison of constant chasing. A prison where they cannot stop working because the machine only survives when they are exhausted. That is not freedom. That is self-employment without leverage. Runway prevents that. It does not guarantee success, but it gives your judgment room to operate. It lets you build from strategy instead of panic. And understand this clearly. Runway does not mean you wait forever. It does not mean you worship safety. It does not mean you become addicted to comfort. It means you respect the fact that pressure changes men. Pressure reveals discipline, but unmanaged pressure also destroys precision. You need enough cash to stay dangerous, not comfortable. Dangerous. Dangerous means you can walk away from a bad deal. Dangerous means you can negotiate without neediness. Dangerous means you can keep testing when the first attempt fails. Dangerous means you can let the market teach you without becoming emotionally destroyed by every rejection. The unsupported man does not need fantasy courage. He needs controlled pressure. Step 7. Reach consistent income signals. Do not mistake one good month for a business. A business is not a spike. A business is a pattern. Look for repeat buyers, booked calls, returning customers, referrals, retainers, pipeline, reliable demand, clear margins, predictable acquisition. One lucky sale gives excitement. Consistent demand gives leverage. And leverage is what allows you to make decisions without begging life for permission. This step is where impatience becomes dangerous. A man gets one good month and starts imagining a new identity. He tells himself the job is already unnecessary. He believes the first signal means the system is proven. He wants to turn one spike into a life decision. But a spike is not a pattern. A spike can come from novelty. It can come from luck. It can come from one generous buyer. It can come from temporary attention. It can come from a trend. It can come from one campaign that does not repeat. It can come from your own network supporting you once, then disappearing when the real market must take over. A pattern is different. A pattern returns. A pattern shows that demand exists beyond your excitement. A pattern means people keep asking, people keep buying, people keep booking, people keep referring, people keep responding to the same offer. People keep showing that the problem is real and the solution has value. This is what you are looking for before you exit, not perfect certainty. There is no perfect certainty. You are looking for enough evidence that leaving becomes strategic instead of emotional. The question is not, did I make money once? The question is, can I see demand repeating? The question is not, did someone like the idea? The question is, did enough people take action? The question is not, do I feel ready? The question is, has reality produced signals strong enough to deserve more time, more focus, and more risk? Most men want to be told they are ready because readiness feels like permission. But readiness is not a feeling. Readiness is a pattern of proof. And if the pattern is not there yet, the move is not to quit. The move is to keep building while employed. Keep testing. Keep selling. Keep stacking runway. Keep turning invisible effort into visible proof. This is how a man becomes difficult to trap. He does not wait for life to release him. He builds alternatives until the cage loses authority. Step 8. Exit only when staying costs more than leaving. This is the final rule. You do not leave when you are angry. You do not leave because your boss disrespected you. You do not leave because your friends laughed. You do not leave because you need to prove you are brave. You leave when the job becomes the bottleneck, when the business has evidence. When your time inside the job now costs more opportunity than the paycheck protects. When staying becomes irrational. That is not escape. That is transition. There is a difference between quitting from ego and leaving from leverage. Quitting from ego says, I need them to see that I am serious. Leaving from leverage says, I have built enough proof that my time is now more valuable outside this structure. Quitting from ego is loud. Leaving from leverage is obvious. Quitting from ego needs witnesses. Leaving from leverage needs numbers. Quitting from ego is emotional rebellion. Leaving from leverage is strategic movement. This is the point where the man stops being controlled by both fear and pride. Fear tells him to stay forever. Pride tells him to leave too early. Strategy tells him to build until the decision becomes clear. That is the standard. Not anger, not pressure, not humiliation. Clarity. You exit when the job is no longer protecting you. You exit when the paycheck has become smaller than the opportunity cost. You exit when your business has enough demand, proof, runway, and sales intelligence that staying employed now slows the very machine you have already tested. This is what controlled transition looks like. You use the job without worshipping it. You extracted resources without becoming loyal to your own cage. You built proof before demanding belief. You preserved cash before exposing yourself to pressure. You sold manually before hiding behind systems. You collected evidence before changing identity. Then you leave. Not as a man begging the world to validate his risk, but as a man whose evidence has already changed the equation. This is the identity shift. The old identity says, I need to quit to become free. The strategic identity says, I need to build alternatives until freedom becomes inevitable. The old identity says, if I stay employed, I am weak. The strategic identity says, if I use my employment to fund my escape, I am dangerous. The old identity says, they need to believe in me. The strategic identity says, they will believe when my evidence makes disbelief expensive. The old identity says, my job is stealing my life. The strategic identity says, my job is one resource among many, and I will use it until it loses strategic value. The old identity says, I am trapped because nobody supports me. The strategic identity says, no support means I cannot afford to remain dependent on belief. This is the transformation. You stop being a man who wants permission to leave. You become a man constructing the conditions where leaving becomes obvious. That is power, not noise, not drama, not emotional rebellion. Power is controlled transition. Power is leaving with proof. Power is refusing to let either fear or ego make the decision. Machiavelli wrote that those only are reliable, certain, and durable that depend on yourself and your valor. In business, that means your safest future is not the job, the boss, the family, the economy, or the applause of people who do not understand your ambition. Your safest future is the capability you build, the proof you collect, the buyers you serve, the cash you preserve, and the leverage you control. That is the part no one can give you, and that is the part no one can take without your cooperation. If you are a man building in silence, stop mistaking private ambition for visible proof. You already know the job is not enough, but your real problem is that your escape system is still too weak to carry your life. If you keep waiting for confidence, support, or a perfect moment, you will stay trapped between resentment and delay. Inside Patreon, you get deeper, unfiltered lessons on building leverage, proof, discipline, and controlled transition, so you can stop reacting emotionally and start moving strategically. This is not for men who want motivational comfort. It is for men who want the private work that creates public power. The decision is yours. But there is a darker question beneath all of this. What if your job is not the real prison? What if the real prison is that you have trained yourself to need permission before you move? Because many men say they want to start their own business. But what they really want is to feel chosen. Chosen by family, chosen by customers, chosen by the algorithm, chosen by opportunity, chosen by life. And that is the final weakness. The man who waits to be chosen will always be controlled by the chooser. He waits for his family to understand before he commits. He waits for friends to encourage him before he moves. He waits for customers to discover him before he learns distribution. He waits for confidence before he acts. He waits for the perfect sign before he takes responsibility. Then years pass and he calls it patience. But often it was not patience. It was disguised permission-seeking. Freedom is not created by quitting. Freedom is created by building alternatives. The weak man quits to feel powerful. The strategic man builds until leaving becomes obvious. So the next move is simple. Stop asking whether people believe in you. Ask whether your life has enough proof to make belief unnecessary. Build the survival number. Build the business number. Build the 90-day proof sprint. Sell manually. Create the proof asset. Stack runway. Find consistent demand. Then exit when staying becomes irrational. And if you still feel the need to explain your ambition to people who cannot understand it, that is the next weakness to confront. Because the man who needs permission will always search for a ruler. The man who builds proof becomes harder to rule. Comment. Exit strategy. If you refuse to gamble with your future like an amateur,